The Great Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from 47 different species sat in their assigned seats, their various forms creating a colorful mixture of scales, fur, feathers, and stranger things. The emergency meeting had been called suddenly, and everyone wanted to know why. Ambassador Kale of the Altari Federation stood at the center podium. His blue skin looked pale today, and his usually calm demeanor seemed shaken. The Altari were known throughout the galaxy as peaceful explorers, always eager to make new friends among the stars. But today, Kale looked like someone who had seen a ghost. "Fellow beings of the Council," Kyle began, his voice carrying clearly through the translation devices, "I come before you today with urgent news. Our exploration fleet has discovered a new species on the outer rim of the galaxy. They call themselves humans, and their world is named Earth." A murmur ran through the assembly. New species were always exciting news. The galaxy was vast, and finding intelligent life was still a rare and wonderful event. Most representatives leaned forward with interest. General Vex of the Draconis Empire stood up from his seat. The massive reptilian warrior was nearly twice the height of most other beings in the room. His red scales gleamed under the chamber lights, and his yellow eyes fixed on Kale with predatory interest. "New species mean new territories," Vex said, his voice a deep rumble. "New resources, new worlds to bring into the Empire. This is good news indeed." Several other representatives nodded. The Draconis Empire controlled 50 star systems and was always looking to expand. Their military might was unmatched in the known galaxy, and they had never lost a war. But Kale shook his head violently. "No, General, you do not understand. These humans, they are different. They are dangerous in ways we have never encountered before." Laughter erupted from the Draconis section. General Vex's officers found the idea amusing. The Altari were known for being cautious, but this seemed extreme even for them. "Dangerous?" Vex asked, still chuckling. "Ambassador, with respect, your people see danger in their own shadows. What could one primitive species possibly do to threaten the mighty Draconis Empire?" Kale's hands trembled as he activated the holographic display above the podium. Images of a blue and green world appeared, showing continents and oceans that looked surprisingly similar to many other inhabited worlds. "Let me tell you what we found," Kale said quietly. "Earth is a beautiful world, rich in resources and perfect for life. When our ships first approached, we expected to find a peaceful civilization, perhaps in its early stages of development. The display changed to show images of human cities. Tall buildings reached toward the sky, vehicles moved along paved roads, and millions of lights twinkled in the darkness. They have achieved basic spaceflight," Kale continued. "They have small colonies on their moon and nearby planets. By all appearances, they seemed like any other developing species, so we made contact using standard peaceful protocols." The assembled representatives watched with interest. First contact procedures were well established. The Altari were experts at it, having successfully introduced dozens of species to galactic civilization. "What happened next changed everything we thought we knew about warfare," Kale said, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. "When we landed on Earth to meet their leaders, they welcomed us. They were curious, friendly, eager to learn about the galaxy beyond their world. We spent months with them, studying their culture and sharing our knowledge." General Vex looked bored. "This all sounds perfectly normal, Ambassador. Where's this supposed danger you speak of?" Kyle's eyes met the general's, and there was something in that gaze that made even the mighty Draconis warrior pause. "The danger, General, is in their history. While we were learning about human culture, we discovered something terrifying. These beings have never known true peace. For their entire recorded history, they have been at war. Many species have violent pasts," interrupted Commander Zira of the hegemony. "We all evolved from predators. What makes humans special?" "Because they never stopped," Kale replied. "We found peace through diplomacy. Others found it through conquest or exhaustion. But humans have been fighting each other for over 5,000 years without a single decade of complete global peace." The chamber fell silent. Representatives began to look uncomfortable. Kale continued. "They have fought with sticks and stones. They have fought with metal swords and wooden shields. They have fought with gunpowder weapons and mechanical devices. They have even fought with weapons that can split atoms and destroy entire cities in seconds. The holographic display changed to show images from human history. Ancient battles with thousands of warriors clashing with bronze weapons. Medieval knights in armor charging across fields. Modern soldiers with advanced rifles fighting in trenches. And finally, the mushroom clouds of nuclear explosions. They have weaponized everything, Kale said, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and horror. Their music, their art, their very words can be turned into weapons. They have created poisons that can kill millions, diseases that can wipe out entire populations, and bombs that can crack the surface of planets. General Vex leaned forward, suddenly more interested. Impressive weapons for primitives, but weapons can be countered. Numbers can overwhelm any defense. You still do not understand, Kale said desperately. It is not their weapons that make them dangerous. It is their minds. They think about war differently than we do. The ambassador activated another set of images. These showed human military academies where young humans studied the art of warfare. We study war so we can avoid it, Kyle explained. Humans study war so they can perfect it. They have schools dedicated entirely to the science of combat. They analyze every battle they have ever fought, learning from each victory and defeat. They write books about strategy that are thousands of years old and still studied today. They create simulations of battles that never happened, just to explore new ways of fighting. They turn warfare into mathematics, calculating exactly how to achieve maximum destruction with minimum resources. The chamber was completely silent now. Even General Vex had stopped laughing. But perhaps most terrifying of all, Kale continued, is that they know when to stop. Despite having the power to destroy their own world many times over, they choose restraint. They are not mindless killers or savage beasts. They are intelligent, calculating warriors who understand the true cost of war better than anyone else in the galaxy. Kale looked directly at General Vex. When our cultural exchange was complete, I asked their military leaders what would happen if someone attacked Earth. Do you know what they told me? The general said nothing, waiting. They said they would not just defend themselves. They would hunt down every ship, every base, every world that belonged to their attackers. They would dismantle their enemy's entire civilization, piece by piece, until nothing remained but ashes and regret. Kyle's voice grew urgent. And then, General, they smiled. The warning hung in the air like a physical presence, chilling every being in the Great Hall. 3 days after Ambassador Kale's warning, the Draconis Empire held its war council. The massive chamber deep within their homeworld was carved from black stone, with red crystals providing harsh lighting that cast sharp shadows on the walls. Around a circular table sat the Empire's most powerful military leaders. Emperor Thrax dominated the room from his throne-like chair. The ancient ruler was the largest Draconis anyone had ever seen, his dark red scales bearing the scars of 100 battles. His yellow eyes burned with ambition as he studied the holographic star map floating above the table. So, Thrax rumbled, his voice like grinding stone, the Altari fear these humans. They speak of danger and destruction. He laughed, a sound like breaking rocks. The same Altari who surrender at the first sign of conflict. The same weaklings who beg for peace when we take their worlds. General Vex stood at attention beside the table. My Emperor, I witnessed Kale's presentation myself. The ambassador seemed genuinely frightened. Perhaps we should investigate further before taking action. Investigate? Thrax's eyes narrowed dangerously. Are you suggesting the mighty Draconis Empire should cower before rumors and ghost stories? Of course not, my lord, Vex said quickly. But the Altari are excellent scouts. Their information is usually accurate. Their information about military strength is worthless, Admiral Rax interrupted from across the table. The naval commander was younger than most others present, but his record was perfect. He had conquered 12 star systems for the Empire without losing a single major battle. Look at the facts, Rax continued, activating his own holographic display. This human homeworld, Earth, sits alone on the outer rim. They have barely achieved faster than light travel. Our intelligence shows they have small mining operations on nearby asteroids and a tiny research station on their moon. The display showed images captured by long-range Draconis spy probes. Human spacecraft looked primitive compared to Empire vessels. Their largest ships were clearly designed for cargo transport, not warfare. Their technology is at least 200 years behind ours, Rax explained. They use chemical rockets for most of their space travel. Their weapons appear to be based on projectile systems rather than energy weapons. They do not even have proper shield technology. Emperor Thrax leaned forward with interest. What about their planetary defenses? Minimal, Rax replied confidently. A few orbital platforms around Earth itself, but nothing that could stop a proper invasion fleet. Their military appears to be focused on ground-based forces, not space combat. Commander Drex, leader of the Empire's ground forces, snorted with amusement. Ground forces? How primitive. Do they still fight with swords and spears? Projectile weapons, mostly, Rax answered. Chemical explosives. Very basic compared to our plasma cannons and energy shields. Their soldiers wear simple armor that would not stop even our weakest weapons. The War Council continued for hours, analyzing every piece of intelligence about humanity. The more they learned, the more confident they became. Humans seemed to be exactly what they appeared, a young species taking its first steps into the galaxy. What about their population? Asked General Zek, the Empire's strategic planner. Approximately 8 billion on their homeworld, Rax responded. Perhaps another million scattered among their small colonies. A decent population for slave labor after conquest. Thrax smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. And their resources? Abundant, Rax said eagerly. Earth is rich in metals, water, and organic compounds. The system contains several gas giants, perfect for fuel extraction, and the asteroid belt holds enough rare minerals to supply our shipyards for decades. The Emperor stood slowly, his massive form casting shadows across the chamber. Tell me, Admiral, how long would it take to conquer this human system? Rax did not hesitate. With a proper fleet, my lord? 2 weeks. Perhaps 3 if they hide among their asteroids. But they have nowhere to run, no allies to call for help, no technology that can threaten our ships. And what size fleet would you need? 300 ships should be more than sufficient, my Emperor. Capital ships for orbital bombardment, carriers for fighter support, and troop transports for ground occupation. Standard conquest formation. Thrax walked to the star map, studying the location of Earth's system. It was indeed isolated, far from any major trade routes or allied civilizations, the perfect target for expansion. The Altari spoke of human history, General Vex said carefully. Their wars and weapons. Primitive conflicts between primitive people, Thrax dismissed. Every species fights before it learns civilization. The strong survive, the weak serve. It is the natural order. But my lord, Vex pressed, Kale seemed to believe their experience makes them dangerous. Thrax turned to face his general, and Vex immediately lowered his eyes in submission. Are you questioning my judgment, General? Never, my Emperor. I merely suggest caution. Caution is for the weak, Thrax declared. The Draconis Empire was built through strength and decisive action. We have conquered 50 star systems. We have defeated species with technology far superior to these humans. We have never lost a war. The Emperor returned to his throne. Decision made. Admiral Rax, you will assemble the conquest fleet. General, Vex, prepare ground forces for occupation duties. Commander Drex, ready the slave processing centers. My lord, Rax said with excitement, shall I inform the Galactic Council of our intentions? Standard protocol requires... Protocol? Thrax laughed harshly. Since when does the Empire ask permission to expand? The humans are not council members. They have no treaties or protections. They are free territory, waiting to be claimed. The War Council erupted in approving growls and battle cries. The Draconis had not had a proper conquest in over a year, and the warriors were eager for action. Besides, Thrax continued, the Council is full of weak species like the Altari. They would waste months debating and negotiating. By the time they make a decision, Earth will already be flying our flag. Within hours, orders went out across the Draconis Empire. Shipyards worked overtime to prepare vessels for war. Weapons were loaded, troops were briefed, and supply chains were organized. The machinery of conquest began to turn. Admiral Rax stood on the bridge of his flagship, the massive dreadnought Empire's Wrath. Through the viewport he could see the assembled fleet, 300 ships of various sizes, from nimble fighters to planet-killing battleships. It was enough firepower to reduce worlds to ash. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "the fleet is ready for departure." "Excellent," Rax replied. "Set course for the Sol system, maximum speed." As the Draconis warfleet engaged their faster-than-light drives and disappeared into hyperspace, heading toward Earth, none of them noticed the small Altari scout ship that had been monitoring their preparations. Ambassador Kale watched the departure with growing dread. His attempts to warn the Council had failed. His direct appeals to the Emperor had been ignored. Now, the most powerful military force in the galaxy was heading toward a world they did not understand. Kale tried desperately to send a warning message to Earth, but Draconis jamming technology blocked all communications to the Sol system. The humans would face the invasion alone, with no warning of what was coming. As his ship jumped to hyperspace, racing to alert the Galactic Council, Kale could only hope that his fears were wrong. Perhaps the humans were just another primitive species after all. Perhaps the Draconis would achieve another easy victory. But deep in his heart, the ambassador knew better. The galaxy was about to learn why humans smiled when they talked about war. The Draconis warfleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system like a cloud of metal death. 300 ships of various sizes spread across the darkness, their hulls gleaming with weapon ports and armor plating. "Admiral," Rax stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying the tactical displays with satisfaction. "Report," he commanded his bridge crew. "Long-range scanners show minimal activity around the third planet," his sensor officer replied. "Several small orbital stations, a few dozen ships moving between the inner planets. No major defensive installations detected. Just as our intelligence predicted," Rax said with a smile. "These humans are even more primitive than expected. Signal the fleet to assume attack formation." The massive Draconis ships began moving into their standard conquest pattern. Heavy battleships formed the front line, their plasma cannons charging for planetary bombardment. Carrier vessels released swarms of fighter craft that buzzed around the larger ships like angry insects. Troop transports hung back, waiting for the initial bombardment to clear any resistance. "Admiral," the communications officer reported, "we are receiving a transmission from the human vessels." "How many ships are they sending to meet us?" Rax asked, expecting to hear about desperate evacuation fleets or perhaps a small militia force. 37 ships, sir. They appear to be converted civilian vessels, cargo haulers, mining ships, and what looks like a passenger transport." Rax laughed so hard he nearly fell from his command chair. 37 ships against our 300? He wiped tears from his yellow eyes. These humans are either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. The human fleet approached slowly, their ships looking like scrap metal compared to the sleek Draconis war vessels. The largest human ship was barely 1/10 the size of Rax's flagship, and most were much smaller. "Sir, they are requesting communication," the communications officer reported. "Put them through," Rax said, still chuckling. "I want to hear what these primitives have to say before we destroy them." The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of a human vessel. A man in a simple military uniform sat in the captain's chair, his expression calm and alert. His name tag read, "Captain Blake." "This is Admiral Rax of the Draconis Empire," Rax announced proudly. "I am here to claim this system for the Empire. You will surrender immediately and your deaths will be quick." Captain Blake studied the Admiral for a moment, then replied in a steady voice. "This is Captain Blake of the Earth Defense Force. You have entered our territory without permission and with obvious hostile intent. You have exactly 10 minutes to leave our system, or we will be forced to defend ourselves." The Draconis bridge crew erupted in laughter. Even Rax's most serious officers found the humans' words amusing. "Defend yourselves?" Rax asked, still smiling. "Captain, I have 300 warships. You have 37 cargo vessels. Do you understand mathematics?" Blake's expression did not change. "Admiral, we tried peace once. It didn't work out very well for the people who broke it. You now have 9 minutes and 30 seconds. You dare threaten the Draconis Empire?" Rax's amusement turned to anger. "I will enjoy watching your primitive world burn." 8 minutes, Blake replied calmly and cut the communication. Rax turned to his weapons officer. "Target their flagship." One shot from our main cannon should be enough to show them the futility of resistance. Firing main plasma cannon, the weapons officer reported. A brilliant beam of energy lanced out from the Draconis flagship, capable of melting through the armor of any known ship. It struck Blake's vessel directly in the center. The human ship's hull glowed white-hot for a moment, then something impossible happened. Instead of exploding or melting, the ship absorbed the energy and continued moving forward as if nothing had occurred. What? Rax stared at his tactical display in confusion. How is their ship still intact? Unknown, sir, his weapons officer replied, panic creeping into his voice. The energy signature shows a direct hit, but there is no damage visible. Fire again, all forward batteries. Multiple energy beams struck the human fleet, but the results were the same. The ship seemed to shrug off weapons that could destroy cities. Sir, the sensor officer called out urgently, the human ships are accelerating. They are moving into attack formation. Rax watched in disbelief as the small human fleet spread out and began approaching his massive armada. Their movement patterns were unlike anything he had ever seen, seemingly random but somehow perfectly coordinated. All ships open fire, Rax commanded. Destroy them. The Draconis fleet unleashed everything they had. Plasma cannons, energy torpedoes, and particle beams filled space with deadly light, but the human ships danced between the attacks like they knew exactly where each shot would go. Then the humans fired back. What came from their ships were not energy weapons or advanced missiles. They were simple chunks of metal, accelerated to incredible speeds. But when these primitive projectiles hit Draconis vessels, they punched through shields and armor like they were made of paper. Impossible! Rax shouted as he watched 3 of his battleships torn apart by what appeared to be glorified bullets. How are they penetrating our shields? Sir, his science officer replied with terror in his voice. Those projectiles are moving. At significant fractions of light speed. At those velocities, mass becomes irrelevant. They are hitting us with the force of small stars. The battle turned into a nightmare for the Draconis. Their superior numbers meant nothing when human ships moved like ghosts appearing where they were least expected. Their advanced weapons were useless against enemies who seemed to predict every attack. Worse still, the humans fought with a coordination that defied explanation. When one human ship was damaged, others would immediately move to protect it. When Draconis ships grouped together for mutual defense, human vessels would appear from impossible angles to strike at weak points. Admiral, his tactical officer screamed, the humans are using their own ships as weapons. Rax looked up to see one of the smaller human vessels accelerating directly toward his flagship. The ship's engines glowed white-hot as it built up speed. Evasive maneuvers, Rax ordered, but it was too late. The human ship struck the Draconis flagship at tremendous velocity, but instead of a simple collision, something far worse happened. The human vessel exploded at the moment of impact, turning itself into a directed nuclear explosion that tore through the flagship's hull like tissue paper. Emergency alarms blared throughout the bridge as atmosphere rushed out through massive hull breaches. Half of Rax's crew were dead or dying and his mighty flagship was crippled. Retreat. Rax gasped through his emergency breathing mask. All ships retreat to hyperspace. The surviving Draconis vessels fled in panic, leaving behind the wreckage of 75 ships, a quarter of their entire fleet destroyed in less than 30 minutes. As the Draconis fleet jumped to hyperspace, Captain Blake's voice reached them on an open channel. You had your chance to leave peacefully. Tell your Emperor that if he wants Earth, he'll have to come and take it himself. We'll be waiting. In the silence of space, the human fleet regrouped around their damaged vessels, already beginning repairs. They had fought the most powerful military force in the galaxy and won decisively. The war had begun, and the Draconis Empire had just learned their first lesson about underestimating humans. Admiral Rax returned to the Draconis homeworld in shame. His once mighty flagship limped into port with massive hull breaches and half its crew dead. The sight of the defeated fleet shocked the entire empire. Never before had Draconis forces suffered such devastating losses. Emperor Thrax received the admiral in the throne room, his yellow eyes burning with rage. The massive ruler's claws scraped against his stone throne as he listened to the battle report. 75 ships destroyed, Thrax repeated slowly, his voice like grinding metal. A quarter of our invasion fleet. defeated by 37 primitive vessels. "My Emperor," Rax said, kneeling before the throne, "these humans fight unlike any enemy we have faced. Their weapons are crude but effective. Their tactics are unpredictable. They seem to know exactly what we will do before we do it." "Excuses!" Thrax roared, standing to his full towering height. "The Draconis Empire does not lose battles to primitives. You will return with the full battle fleet. Every ship we have, crush these humans completely." Within days, the Empire mobilized its entire military force. 800 warships gathered in space above the Draconis homeworld, the largest fleet ever assembled. General Vex commanded the ground forces while Admiral Rax led the space battle. Groups. They would not underestimate the humans again. "This time we take no chances," Thrax declared at the final War Council. "Bombard every human world from orbit. Turn their planets to glass, leave nothing alive." The massive armada jumped to hyperspace, heading for Earth with enough firepower to destroy entire star systems. But this time, the humans were ready. Earth's defense force had grown during the month between battles. The 37 ships that fought the first engagement had become over 200 vessels. More importantly, these were no longer converted civilian craft. They were purpose-built warships designed specifically to kill Draconis. Captain Blake stood on the bridge of the new flagship, Humanity's Resolve. The vessel looked nothing like the cargo hauler he had commanded in the first battle. This ship was sleek, deadly, and covered in weapon systems that the Draconis had never seen before. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "long-range sensors detect the Draconis fleet. 800 ships, all military class." 800, Blake mused. "They're serious this time. Signal the fleet to assume defensive positions around Earth and activate the orbital platforms." What the Draconis scouts had missed during their reconnaissance were the massive weapon platforms humanity had built in Earth's shadow. Disguised as asteroids and space debris, these installations contained humanity's most devastating weapons. When the Draconis fleet arrived, they found not 37 ships, but a coordinated defense network that spanned the entire solar system. Human vessels moved in perfect formation while hidden platforms powered up weapons that glowed with dangerous energy. "All ships attack," Admiral Rax commanded, determined not to repeat his previous failure. "Overwhelm them with numbers." The Draconis fleet charged forward like an avalanche of metal and fire, but as they entered the inner solar system, they discovered that the humans had learned from the first battle too. The space around Earth erupted in explosions as hidden mines detonated against Draconis hulls. These were not random explosions. Each blast was precisely timed and positioned to cause maximum damage. The humans had turned the vacuum of space itself into a weapon. "Impossible!" Rax shouted as he watched dozens of his ships torn apart by traps he never saw coming. "How did they mine an entire star system in 1 month?" His science officer studied the tactical displays with growing horror. "Admiral, these are not simple mines. Each explosion is coordinated with the others. The humans have calculated the exact blast patterns needed to destroy our formations." The human fleet attacked while the Draconis were still reeling from the minefield. But this time, the humans did not rely on converted cargo ships and desperate tactics. They fought with military precision that made the Draconis look like amateurs. Human vessels moved in groups of 3, each group covering the other's weaknesses. When Draconis ships tried to surround them, the humans would scatter and regroup instantly. When the aliens attempted to retreat, human ships would appear behind them as if they had predicted the movement. "How are they everywhere at once?" General Vex demanded from his command ship. "It is as if they know our battle plans before we make them." The truth was even more disturbing. The humans had studied every recorded Draconis battle for the past century. They knew exactly how the Empire fought, what tactics they used, and how they would respond to any situation. The Draconis military doctrine, which had conquered 50 worlds, was completely predictable to human strategists. But the real horror came when Draconis forces tried to land on human colonies. The Empire had planned to use their superior ground forces to capture human worlds, but they found that every human settlement had become a fortress. On Mars, Draconis troops landed to find empty cities that turned into death traps. Every building was booby-trapped, every street was a kill zone, and every human civilian was apparently a trained soldier. The Red Planet became a graveyard for Draconis ground forces. "Sir," Commander Drex reported from the surface, his voice filled with panic, The humans have disappeared. The entire population has vanished, but they left behind thousands of automated weapons. The cities are killing our troops without any defenders present. On Europa, the Ice Moon's human mining colonies proved even more dangerous. The humans had used their knowledge of the moon's unstable ice sheets to create massive traps. When Draconis forces landed, entire sections of the surface collapsed, swallowing hundreds of troops in freezing water. But most disturbing of all was what happened on the asteroid belt mining stations. The humans did not fight to defend them. Instead, they evacuated completely, leaving behind what appeared to be normal mining equipment. When Draconis forces occupied the stations, they discovered too late that the mining equipment had been converted into weapons. Asteroid processing plants became mass drivers, firing chunks of rock at near-light speed toward Draconis ships. The aliens found themselves under bombardment from their own captured positions. They have turned everything into a weapon, Rack screamed as another of his battleships was destroyed by what had once been a simple ore processor. Their mining equipment, their construction tools, even their waste disposal systems are trying to kill us. The war that the Draconis expected to win in days dragged on for months. Every victory came at a terrible cost, and the humans adapted to every tactic faster than seemed possible. Worse still, captured Draconis technology began appearing in human hands, improved and turned against its original creators. Admiral, his intelligence officer reported during one particularly bad week, the humans have somehow copied our shield technology and made it better. Their new ships are completely immune to our plasma weapons. How is that possible? Rax demanded. We only lost those ships 3 days ago. Unknown, sir. But they are also using our own communication frequencies to coordinate their attacks. They appear to understand our technology better than we do. As the Draconis fleet slowly retreated toward the outer solar system, having lost over half their ships, Admiral Rax finally understood what Ambassador Kale had tried to warn them about. The humans were not just defending their home. They were learning, adapting, and evolving their tactics with every battle. The Draconis Empire, which had never lost a war, was being systematically dismantled by an enemy that treated warfare like a science. 6 months after the war began, the remnants of the Draconis fleet limped back toward their home system. Admiral Rax commanded only 150 ships from the original 800 that had attacked Earth. His once proud armada was broken, defeated, and demoralized. But as they dropped out of hyperspace near the Draconis homeworld, Rax discovered something that made his blood freeze. Human ships were already there, waiting for them. Impossible, Rax whispered, staring at the tactical display. 20 human vessels hung in space between his fleet and the planet, their sleek forms dark against the stars. How did they get here? We destroyed all their hyperspace-capable ships. His science officer's voice trembled with fear. Sir, these are not the same ships we fought at Earth. The design is completely different. It appears they have reverse-engineered our faster-than-light technology and improved it. On the planet's surface, Emperor Thrax stood in his throne room, watching through the great windows as strange fires burned across his capital city. But these were not random fires of destruction. They were precise, controlled burns that targeted only military installations, communication centers, and weapon factories. Report, Thrax demanded as General Vex entered the chamber, his armor scorched and his scales blackened with smoke. My Emperor, Vex said, barely able to stand. The humans arrived 3 days ago, not with a massive invasion fleet, but with small teams that appeared from nowhere. They struck every military base simultaneously, disabled our planetary defense grid, and captured our primary spaceports. How many troops did they land? Thrax asked, his claws digging into his throne. Unknown, my lord, we never saw them coming. Our sensors detected no landing craft, no transport ships. They simply appeared inside our most secure facilities as if they materialized from thin air. The truth was even more impressive than General Vex realized. While the Draconis had been fighting desperately to hold Earth's solar system, human special forces had captured several Draconis ships intact. They had not just copied the alien technology, they had perfected it. Human engineers had improved Draconis cloaking devices, making them completely undetectable. They had enhanced the teleportation technology that Draconis troops used for boarding actions, turning it into a tool for surgical strikes. In 6 months, humanity had taken technology that the Draconis had developed over centuries and made it better. In space above the planet, Admiral Rax faced Captain Blake once again. The human officer appeared on his communication screen, still, calm and professional, despite commanding a force that had somehow reached the heart of the Draconis Empire. "Admiral Rax," Blake said politely, "I believe we need to discuss terms." "Terms?" Rax snarled, his defeat making him desperate. "I still have 150 ships, you have only 20. "Admiral," Blake replied patiently, "look at your tactical display more carefully." Rax glanced at his screens and felt his heart stop. The 20 human ships he could see were surrounded by empty space that somehow registered as solid objects on his sensors. Dozens of cloaked vessels hung invisible around his fleet, their weapons already locked onto Draconis targets. "We could destroy your remaining ships right now," Blake continued, "but that would serve no purpose. The war is over, Admiral. The question is what happens next." On the planet below, Emperor Thrax faced his own impossible situation. Human soldiers had occupied every major city on the Draconis homeworld, but they had done so without killing a single civilian. Military targets were destroyed with surgical precision, but hospitals, schools, and residential areas remained untouched. "They could have killed everyone," General Vex reported in amazement. "Their weapons are powerful enough to crack our planet's crust. Instead, they disabled our military and left the population unharmed. I do not understand their strategy." Thrax understood perfectly, and it terrified him more than any threat of destruction. The humans were not conquerors seeking to enslave or destroy their enemies. They were demonstrating something far more dangerous: the power to completely control their opponent's fate. The communication system in the throne room activated, and Emperor Thrax found himself face to face with a human general. The man was older than Captain Blake, with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too much war. "Emperor Thrax," the human said, "I am General Adams of the Earth Defense Command. We need to talk." "You dare address the Emperor of the Draconis Empire as an equal?" Thrax roared, his pride making him defiant even in defeat. "No," Adams replied calmly. "I address you as the former emperor of a former empire. Your military is destroyed, your fleet is captured, and your worlds are under our control. But we are not here to gloat or to rule over you." Thrax leaned forward, confused despite his anger. "Then why are you here?" "To offer you something your empire never offered its enemies," Adams said. "A chance to surrender with dignity, a chance to rebuild, a chance to learn from your mistakes." The human general activated a holographic display showing star maps of Draconis space. Red marks indicated worlds that had been captured or controlled, but surprisingly, most of the Empire's territory remained under alien control. "We have taken your military capability," Adams explained, "but we have no interest in ruling your people. You will withdraw from all conquered worlds and return them to their original inhabitants. You will dismantle your war machine and focus on peaceful development, and you will accept human observers to ensure you keep these agreements." "And if we refuse?" Thrax asked, though he already knew the answer. "Then we will do what you planned to do to Earth," Adams replied simply. "But I do not think that will be necessary. Your people are not evil, Emperor. They are simply following leaders who chose conquest over cooperation." Over the following weeks, the galaxy watched in amazement as the Draconis Empire formally surrendered to humanity. The peace treaty that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. Instead of demanding tribute or territory, the humans insisted on education and reform. Human teachers arrived on Draconis worlds to share knowledge of science, medicine, and engineering. Human doctors provided medical care to wounded Draconis soldiers. Human engineers helped rebuild the infrastructure that had been damaged during the war. Ambassador Kale of the Altari Federation met with General Adams on a neutral space station where the Galactic Council was holding emergency sessions. The other species watched the humans with a mixture of awe and terror. "Your people could have destroyed the Draconis completely," Kale observed. "Why show mercy to those who would have shown you none?" Adams looked out at the stars through the station's viewport, his expression thoughtful. "Because we learned something a long time ago, Ambassador. The strongest civilizations are not the ones that can destroy their enemies. They are the ones that can choose not to." "But surely you must want something in return," Kale pressed. Resources, territory, tribute. We want peace, Adams replied simply. Real peace, the kind that comes when former enemies become friends. The Draconis are not our enemies anymore. They are our responsibility. The Galactic Council formally recognized humanity as a major power, not through conquest, but through their demonstration of strength tempered by wisdom. Human ships began patrolling former Draconis space, not as occupiers, but as protectors, ensuring that the cycle of conquest and revenge would finally end. In his final report to the Council, Ambassador Kale wrote, "The humans have taught us that true power lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to know when destruction is unnecessary. They have turned their greatest strength, their understanding of war, into their greatest gift, the knowledge of how to build lasting peace." The galaxy had learned why you should never attack humans. Not because they were the strongest, but because they understood conflict better than anyone else, and they had chosen to use that knowledge to protect rather than conquer.